Today's learning target is I can write fractions as percents and percents as fractions.
One of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to write percents as fractions in the simplest form. Now you might be saying to yourself, I remember doing this earlier in the year, and we did. But in today's lesson, we're going to take it one step farther. Now if you remember, percent actually means per cent means 100. So this 14% we could write as a fraction 14 per cent or per 100, and then we could simplify that. In today's assignment, you're going to see percentages that look like this, where it's over 100%. Okay, there's two ways we can solve this. The first is we could actually write this as a fraction, just like this. Remember, 125% would mean 125 per 100. And now I know this is an improper fraction because my numerator is bigger than my denominator. So I could divide it out, 125 divided by 100. And if I did that, I would get 1 with a remainder of 25. And remember, to write that as a mixed number, I would go 1, because that's this right here. The remainder becomes my numerator, and my denominator is what I divided by. Okay, it's that 100. And so this, if I simplify it down and I divide both these by 5, would give me 1 and 1/4. So this over here is one way that I could turn this percentage into a mixed number. Okay? The other way I could do this is to remember that every 100% equals 1 whole. So in this case I have 125%. So that 100% is going to be 1 whole. And now I'm left with 25%, which is 25 over 100. And if I simplified both those, divide them both by 5, I would get 1/4. So the 100% was 1 whole, that's what I showed there, and the 25% is the same as 1/4. So that would be the other way to solve it. Let's say that I have a decimal percentage, like I have here, 27.5 or 27 5/10%. Okay, now if I wrote that as a fraction, I'm going to get 27.5 over 100, just like this. So notice when I wrote this now, I have a decimal in my numerator. And I don't want to have that when I'm simplifying fractions. It's going to make things confusing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this fraction into an equivalent fraction or an equal fraction, but one that doesn't have a decimal here. Now I would like to move this decimal point one place to the right. Now I want you to think to yourself, how can I move a decimal one place to the right? Remember that if I times a number by 10, all I do is move the decimal one place to the right. So in this case, if I times 27.5 times 10, I would just move the decimal one place to the right, and I would get 275. Now also remember, if I do it to the numerator, I have to do it to the denominator. So my equivalent fraction becomes 275, and then at the bottom, remember if I have 100, the decimal point is right here, times it by 10, it moves it one place to the right, I'm going to have 1,000. Now I could write it on a calculator, but it's faster to do in my head mentally. So now I can just simplify this. Now I notice these numbers end in 5 and 0, so I know I can divide both these by 5. And when I did that on my calculator, I got 55 for my numerator over 200. Okay, I'm still not done because I notice that I could divide both these by 5. And when I did that on my calculator, I got 11 over 40, and 11 is a prime number, so I know that is in simplest form.
When I'm asked to write fractions as percents, okay, like I am here, it says write 4/15 as a percent, and then I'm going to need to round to the nearest hundredth. So, first thing I want to do here is I'm going to write 4/15, my fraction, and I want to get it as a percent. Remember, that means per 100. So, to do that, I'm going to make a proportion, and I want it to be 100 in the denominator because it's percent per 100. Okay, so I want to figure out what my numerator would be. because in this case, if I can figure that out, I know percentage-wise that will be my percent. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is the same thing I've done before. To find a proportion, I'm going to cross multiply. So 4 times 100 equals 400. I'm going to put that over here. And now the other side, I'm going to have 15 times x. So that's equal to 15 times x. Okay. Now I want to get my x by itself. So to do that, I have to divide each side by 15. And that cancels itself out. So now to solve for x, I'm going to have to do this problem, 400 divided by 15.
And when I do that on my calculator, I get 26.6 repeating. And remember, this will go on forever. Keep in mind, this 7 is here because it's the last digit place that I had on my calculator, and it rounded it. But I want to round to the nearest hundredths. So remember, this is tenths, this is the hundredths. So I'm going to take a look. Here's where I'm rounding it to. I look at the number next to it, and this number is above a 5 or above. So that means I'm rounding my hundredths place up 1. So I'm going to get x is going to be 26.67 over 100. And remember that 26.67 per 100 would be the same as 26.67% per 100. So this right here is how I would write 4/15 as a percent. The last problem we'll have, again, will probably look familiar. So it says here, we're going to compare these using the less than, greater than, or equal sign. And I see I have 1 decimal and 1 fraction. Now remember, before I can compare them, I want to get these both to be the same in the same form. So in this case, I see a decimal here. I know I could make this into a decimal very easy by dividing. So I'm going to do 7 divided by 8. And when I solved that on my calculator, I got 875 thousandths. So now I wrote this number right underneath my other number so I could compare it easily. And I'm going to put a 0 in here just to fill in that place value spot. And now I can compare it. And I start on my left, and I can't tell what's bigger. So now I go to the next number, can't tell. And here I see, oh, the 7's bigger, so this number is larger, so I would put my less than sign in there.